Right now, you can walk into a gun store and buy a brand new striker-fired 9mm for less than what a box of premium ammunition cost just a few years ago. That isn't a holiday sale. It isn't a one-time clearance event. It's the result of one of the biggest pricing shifts the handgun market has seen in years. And surprisingly, almost nobody is talking about what actually caused it. Because this wasn't triggered by a defective product, a political ban, or some secret industry conspiracy. It was driven by something much simpler and much more powerful. Here's what's really happening. For the past 2 years, gun stores across the country have been sitting on more handguns than they know what to do with. Background checks, the closest thing we have to a real-time measure of firearm demand, have been declining for 6 straight years. And when inventory piles up faster than customers walk through the door, retailers fall back on the oldest strategy in business: lower the price. That's the story you're about to hear. Not internet rumors, not clickbait, not a YouTube insider. Everything in this video is backed by FBI background check data, ATF commerce reports, industry inventory data, and the earnings calls of America's 2 largest publicly traded firearm manufacturers. By the end, you'll understand exactly why handgun prices dropped, why some manufacturers are already pushing prices back up, and why this buying opportunity may not last much longer. Let's start with the number that explains almost everything: 2020. That year, firearm sales exploded to an all-time record. Nearly 22 million guns sold in just 12 months. A global pandemic, widespread uncertainty, civil unrest, and a heated election created a buying frenzy unlike anything the industry had ever seen. People were buying firearms almost as fast as stores could stock them. Manufacturers saw that demand and responded exactly the way any business would. They dramatically increased production. But here's the catch. Demand like that isn't normal. It was never going to last forever, and it didn't. Every year after 2020, background checks steadily declined. Demand cooled, but production didn't stop overnight. Firearm factories can't instantly slow down after investing in new equipment, hiring workers, and expanding capacity. So while fewer people were buying, more guns were still being made. By 2024 and 2025, distributors and retailers found themselves sitting on mountains of unsold inventory. One industry report estimated retail inventories were roughly 1/3 higher than they were before the pandemic. That's not a small surplus. That's an entire supply chain trying to move products that buyers weren't rushing to purchase anymore. And this is where everything changed. When retailers have too much inventory and not enough customers, they don't simply wait for demand to recover. They cut prices aggressively. Throughout 2025, discounts spread across rifles, shotguns, optics, suppressors, and handguns followed the same downward trend. This is the price crash people keep talking about. It wasn't caused by recalls. It wasn't because handgun quality suddenly declined, and it wasn't because people stopped trusting firearms. It was simply supply overwhelming demand. The exact same thing that happens when car dealerships end up with too many vehicles sitting on the lot. But here's where most people stop paying attention, and that's exactly where the real story begins. Because handgun prices didn't fall equally. Some categories dropped far more than others, and that's where the biggest opportunities appeared. Let's zoom in for a moment. One nationwide industry sales index revealed something remarkable. In a single recent quarter, the average price of 9mm ammunition, the most popular handgun caliber in America, fell by more than 14%. Meanwhile, rifle calibers like 6.5 Creedmoor barely changed, and in some cases, even became more expensive. Why? Because 9mm serves the largest segment of the firearms market. It's the caliber millions of shooters already own, train with, and stockpile. Once demand cooled, that massive customer base slowed purchases more dramatically than almost any other group. Rifle owners, on the other hand, represent a smaller but more consistent market. They tend to keep buying regardless of short-term swings. That difference matters because when the biggest customer base pulls back, retailers feel it immediately. And that's exactly why handgun pricing softened more than almost any other major firearms category. Now, once you understand that, the next piece of the puzzle makes much more sense. In January 2026, another major change reshaped part of the firearms market. The federal government eliminated the long-standing $200 tax stamp that had applied to suppressors and certain other regulated items. Almost overnight, an entire accessory category became significantly less expensive to own. Demand surged almost immediately, and that's important because it reveals something many headlines completely miss. This isn't an industry collapsing, it's an industry rebalancing. Some product categories are cooling off while others are heating up, sometimes at exactly the same time. But here's the twist that almost nobody sees coming. The cheap handgun window may already be starting to close. Take one of the country's two largest publicly traded firearm manufacturers. In its most recent quarter, handgun shipments to retailers jumped by 28%, even though FBI background check numbers for the same period were slightly lower. Think about that for a second. More handguns shipped, slightly fewer background checks. That only makes sense if the company is taking market share away from smaller competitors while maintaining stronger pricing. And that's exactly what executives told investors. During their earnings call, leadership specifically talked about having pricing power. In plain English, they're no longer relying on heavy discounts. Profit margins improved. Average selling prices stayed strong. That's the opposite of a company desperately trying to clear excess inventory. So why should you care? Because it offers a glimpse of where the market may be heading next. As inventory slowly returns to normal, another pressure is building. New tariffs introduced during 2026 have increased costs on imported firearms and key raw materials, including steel, used throughout the industry. Manufacturers are already facing higher production costs, and many analysts now believe the deep discounts that defined 2025 are beginning to disappear as those costs work their way through the supply chain. Which brings us to the real question. Not whether handgun prices crashed, they clearly did. The real question is, how much time is left before the market turns the other direction? Based on the sales data, manufacturer earnings, inventory trends, and industry forecasts, that window appears to be getting smaller, much faster than many buyers realize. So here's where everything stands. Handgun prices fell because of a very specific chain of events, an unprecedented pandemic buying boom, years of overproduction, rising inventories, and weakening demand across the largest segment of the market. That explains the past, but the present is already changing. Tariffs are increasing manufacturing costs. Major manufacturers are beginning to regain pricing power. Inventory levels are improving, and more industry analysts expect retail prices to continue climbing throughout the rest of 2026. So if you've been waiting for the perfect time to buy, the data suggests that opportunity may not stay open forever. And if you want to see which specific handgun models are still selling at near clearance prices before those deals disappear, that's exactly what we're breaking down next.